Hey everyone, I'm Lily, and it's a nice rainy day out, and I got a nice cup of tea, and this seems like the perfect atmosphere for me to do one of the things I love doing, and that is complain about the alignment chart. If you've been around my channel, you probably know that I don't like the alignment system at all in D&D. I think it's to the point of being almost meaningless nowadays. And today I just want to kind of talk about something which one of those reasons why it just is really weird and doesn't work. And that's talking about neutrality. So, for those of you who don't know, the D&D alignment system, you've seen it a lot on memes and things like that, where it's like the grid, like the 3x3 grid, and you have top to bottom, you have good, neutral, evil, and then you have lawful, neutral, chaotic. Most of my problems actually end up being with like the nature of between like chaotic and lawful. I feel like there's a lot of confusion about what those mean, and there's also a lot of just disagreement about what those means, which is a problem in and of itself. I think the biggest argument against the alignment chart system is that it means so many different things for so many different people that it kind of has lost all meaning in that way, where it's a classification where anything could be argued to be one of like 6 different other classifications, and that isn't a useful system. But for the most part, otherwise, we're actually talking about neutrality on the good-evil axis. Where it's one of those things where, okay, what is a good character? A good character is one who cares about others, who, cares about also others who they don't have a personal interest in. Like, just because you care about your mom doesn't make you, not an evil person because you just are to murder someone, I guess. I don't know. Meanwhile, so it's do you care about a person for being a person, like the random person down the street or on the other side of the world or things like that? Do you value human life? On the flip side is evil characters, which is anywhere from actively relishing in harming other people, kind of like a sadistic, glee from murdering people, torturing them, evil things, things that evil people do. I don't understand them. I don't like doing those things. But yeah, so those are pretty easy to understand. And then there's neutral, which the core argument of being do you value human life? Yes or no? It seems kind of like a pretty binary answer, because it's you could be okay, but it's yeah, to an extent, but it's evil characters care about other people's lives to an extent. They care about their friends, their loved ones, and things like that. At what point does then so it's not like evil characters don't care about anyone. Some do, but so it's but when does that point, that threshold cross? And the same thing could be said for good characters. It's the idea is you can still be good and believe that there are some people beyond redemption and things like that. And if you're good, I don't think it's that light of the situation being you know what, I may not need to feel obligated to protect the life of those who are actively actively trying to destroy other people and things like that, because that isn't there is a certain point that compassion doesn't make sense anymore. But the boundaries between good and evil are very clear. There's no mixing a good character with an evil character. Once you know all their motivations, there can always be evil characters masquerading as good people and things like that, and devious plots, and you can have misguided ones who have their intentions at heart and things like that. But yeah, but there's some gray area there. But for the most part, it's pretty clear about like who is good and who is evil. And one thing that's also hard to like kind of apply is that good and evil aren't real concepts. Like in the real world, there's no such thing as good and evil, like as fundamental concepts. But there is a departure of this in D&D where there is ultimate good. Like there are gods who literally exemplify what it means to be a good person, as well as there are fundamental gods talking about who it means to be an evil person. And in some systems they're fundamental to say who it is to be a neutral person, but I'm getting into the problem. That's what we're talking about. It's the problem of neutrality. Because in this sense, like neutral, like okay, it's like in D&D, like in the real world things aren't black and white, but in D&D they actually often are, because there is objective good, objective evil, objective truth does exist when it comes to morality within D&D. Of course, individual like campaign settings and things like that might change that, but if we're talking about kind of like the core like idea, like high fantasy feel of D&D, that is just, it's part of the cosmology and everything. There's literally planes of existence which exemplify these ideas. But like, then you get into the real world, and I'm going to get into. I'm not going to go into specifics, but just fair warning, we'll start to tread into what could be considered to be political space, which is the idea of who would be a neutral person and like who is good and who is evil in the real world. Okay. So, like, what is good? Valuing human, like, if we're talking about the thing of like valuing human life and things like that, and defining what that means is not really in the scope of this. But let's do something that's something that shouldn't be controversial. Let's talk about like climate change, environmentalism, and things like that. And I'm not talking about specifics about how we should enact things, but just as an example that can be talked about, like, you can say that the good people are actively trying to not cause the destruction of our planet and our species, and like trying to like advocate for like safer alternatives to things that are actively destroying everything. I love the current world state. And those are probably like the good people. The evil people who are on the other end, like, those are the clearly good people. These people, like the activists, the people who are out there, like, on the front lines trying to get these things changed. And then you have the, like, ultimate evil people who are, like, I don't know, I'm assuming they're just, like, sinister oil barons and, like, volcano layers. Like, that's what evil people are, like, right? But, like, and, like, these other, like, industry leaders who are leading these industries that are, like, causing the death of this planet, and then manipulating political systems to change what is available, like information, and trying to curtail and make sure that's like, I don't actually care about the planet, I care about my short-term games and what I can get for myself, because I'm evil. And I don't think that's that far of a stretch to say that they are evil. If you don't think so, leave. I don't need you on this channel. If you think, if you're a climate change denier, get out of here. Just leave. Just leave. I'm sorry. Those people exist. I haven't really gotten political on this channel before. Hi, I'm a raging socialist. That's not for today's video, but most people, you would say, fall in between those ends. Like, not everyone is cartoonishly overbearing with like fat cat oil baron with a monocle, like, I don't know, what do evil people do? Snorting diamonds? I don't know. But also not everyone is like an activist on the front line and stuff. And like, what is, like, you could say like everyone else, you could say, yeah, there are people on both ends. Like, you could say there are like evil, like there are still evil people who are like maybe not be the leaders of that, but are like helping like further their goals and stuff because of like vested interests themselves, be it political or financial. And then on the other end you have people who like don't have the resources to actively like advocate for these things like full time, but like still push for climate change, do their part to like do what they need to help protect the environment and things like that. But then there's still a large number of people who are in the middle. And are they neutral? Like on this issue, like I am boiling this down to a single issue, and this is a really weird neutrality thing where it's also kind of like whose job is it? Like there are people who, I'm not counting the people who literally just don't know about these things, because you can't act on something if you don't literally know about it and you don't have access to those resources. Where am I going with this? I've started rambling and starting going into this like grand scheme of things, but this is a ramble video. I have not mapped this out at all besides like the roughest possible terms. But there's this neutral ground, and there's this idea that like you see it in a lot of like historians will talking about it, that it's kind of like it's like the silent majority that determines a lot of policy and things like that, where it determines like the apathy is what like allows things to happen, where it's like if you don't care that these like companies are doing these things to like destroy the environment and things like that, you're not going to put pressure on people, you're not going to do that. So you're not going to like pressure politicians to like push back against this and things like that. So it's kind of like things like you're neutral, but you're also actively not helping anyone. Where it's to be apathetic is to align, to be neutral is to align yourself with whoever's in power, and to align your interests. And like you may not ideologically necessarily think that that's necessarily a good thing, but you are doing that. And I'd say that being a good person or like an evil person is less about what you like necessarily believe, but like what you do and what you contribute to. And in that case, like being apathetic to like something like this, you are helping evil in that way. And so it's kind of hard to be truly neutral on this thing. And it gets even more fuzzy when you get into more complex issues that, like, when it comes to like serious world issues, that's probably one of the ones that's like most black and white. Like obviously implementation and things like that has gray area, but and room for debate. But that's not a topic for here. Also, I'm not qualified to really talk about that. But neutrality there, it's like there is no good neutral ground. Either you're helping push to stop this horrible fate for the planet in whatever way you can, like be it bit large or small, or you're part of that apathetic majority who isn't doing anything and is letting this happen. You are still like not necessarily siding with evil, but you are furthering evil's cause, and that in itself could be argued to be an evil act. And neutrality is in this really precarious position. And then like that's just like neutrality on one topic. Now let's switch it to just general. What would a generally just neutral person be? Like on all aspects of morality, a neutral person would just be completely apathetic, like not caring one way or the other on any given issue. And that's not a good character concept. There's not a lot of nuance to that. They just don't care. And this idea of like apathetic, but also like isn't strictly, their conscience isn't clean by not doing anything. There is an issue there. And that wasn't an example in the real world where things are not black and white. Things are shades. Like everything is muddied in mixtures, and the morality of modern society is complex, and I'm never going to tackle that in a video because that's terrifying. But back to D&D. the world is black and white. There is objective good and objective evil. And how can you be neutral in that sort of situation? Where your lack of action one way or the other is being words that mean things, is supporting one side or the other, whether you like it or not. And to support it as kind of like the neutral ground of being like, okay, I might be biased here because I like to think that I'm a good person, but to really have a neutral stance, like, is to say, oh, good people and evil people are equally bad and equally, like if you're going to be truly neutral and not just apathetic, or not necessarily apathetic, but unwilling to act on a lot of these actions, where it's you believe that people, maybe you value human life, but you don't care, you don't want to go out of your way for it, you don't do things that, like, the needs of others don't matter enough for you to act on it. Not counting that, but it's like, if you're truly kind of the philosophically neutral, it's like, I'm neutral. I believe that the angels and demons of the cosmos are equally bad. Not equally evil, because one is literally good, but they're both equally bad for all the people of the world. And that is a position which I just cannot fathom. Like, I can understand, like, maybe having problems with a specific good organization or a specific good individual and their methods and things like that. But to say that goodness itself is equally bad as evil and the only true position is to be in the middle, and from a philosophical standpoint, just doesn't make sense. There's like the variant of it, which is like the druid neutrality, which is like, we must truly be neutral and whatchamacallit, and like, just to be like still in the center, like nature is neutral, nature doesn't care about things, but nature is neutral in a way that no sentient being can be neutral, where it's like, yes, animals are neutral because they lack the intelligence to not be neutral. I'd honestly even argue that there are some animals without natural intentions are not naturally neutral. Like, you can have if a dog is trained, like, within society, they become, like, they care necessarily about, and they raise with, like, good people and stuff, and they learn the empathy that they care about other living things, and that is not strictly neutral in that way. Like, and things like that. Like, obviously that's an interesting situation because it involves human influence and whatnot, but the whole druid neutrality aspect is, we are, like, neutral like nature is, and that usually comes in with, like, okay, so do you protect nature? And they're like, yes, of course we protect nature, we're neutral like nature is. But it's like, okay, protection of nature, veneration of nature, you wish to protect nature because it is, like, a natural source, it is life and things like that. That sounds like you're good. Like, that the same philosophy could apply to, honestly, any of the neutral or good alignments. Like, that alignment is, that position is not actually neutral whatsoever. You are aligning yourself with, like, the cause of, like, these things. And yeah, there are different variations on it, but that just sounds like kind of like a chaotic good or neutral good alignment, not a truly neutral one. I feel a lot of the time, like, neutral slapped on there to sound like this enlightened middle ground that doesn't actually exist and just has trouble existing, where then neutrality comes to this point of, like, which, like, we've talked about, is like, a neutral character is necessarily one who is just apathetic to the struggle of good and evil. And yeah, who they, like, sure, like, they might not support one another, and then that's what a neutral character is. Like, in terms of the actual morality of their actions might be good or evil, but you could say, yeah, no, like, someone who just does not care about the arguments between the two is a neutral person. But then you get back into the gray area where it's like, how apathetic can you be before it becomes like neutral? Like, okay, I don't go out of my way to like save the village half a country over who I heard was being raided by orcs, because that's not my problem. Like, are they still neutral then? Like, no, I think you could say that they're still neutral, and I think even a good character could say that they're doing that. Neutral character being like, okay, like, not intervening, like, when, like, someone's getting mugged, like, 2 streets over, you can see that, like, being like, okay, that's a dangerous situation for me, I don't want to put myself at risk, I value myself a little bit more over a random stranger, even though I don't necessarily wish that stranger harm. Okay, yeah. But then when it comes to what's the point where it crosses in, it's like, that's no longer neutral, you're actively, like, harming someone by negligence. And where it's like not helping someone where you clearly have the need, the ability to, and the means to, and not doing so. And what point do you stop being neutral at that point? And that is a fuzzy line in the real world, and a not good point that isn't well defined in D&D either. And you could say, like, oh, I play it case by case, I do what I need to, like, based on my character. And, like, okay, that's valid. That's a valid way to play a character. But that just still comes back to the core point of neutrality as an alignment is meaningless. It is absolutely meaningless. And that's a problem. Like, the problem is that, especially over the last, like, I would say over the last, like, 5 years or so, with this resurgence of D&D, with, like, the popularization of, like, the D&D alignment chart as, like, a meme and things like that, where, like, people who don't even play or totally, like, have read the source material, have their own interpretations of what all these things mean, that the definitions have gotten a lot more vague. And I've said things contrary to this in the past, and I think it was wrong saying, like, arguing that there is an objective, like, way that the alignment system is supposed to work. Because, you know what, it is a tool, and different people can interpret it in different ways, and there isn't one I believe is totally objectively valid. But again, that's a problem, because it has gotten to the point where it is so different, and there are such disparate ideas of what each alignment means. So many of them are just muddled, like, and, like, just such, like, fine differences that just almost lack meaning between those differences, and a character could be honestly argued to be one of 4 alignments, and things like that, where everyone's personal definition of every alignment is different, and for a broad categorization system, then those categories proceed to lose all meaning. Like, this also ties into my problems with, like, the law chaos axis, because I think that's the one that, like, people have the most trouble with. But, like, on the neutral one, another point I have is, players who use neutral as an excuse to be situationally evil, wherever they can be, like, where they believe that being a neutral character is sometimes doing good things, sometimes doing evil things. And I would argue that sometimes doing evil things is an evil person. Evil person can do good things. Like, okay, maybe not evil person, but, like, it's not, like, balancing out by doing, like a few evil things and one, like, few good things here and there. That's cognitive dissonance, not true, like, not, like, necessarily neutrality? I don't know. But again, that's, like, one of those things where there are so many possible ways to define every single alignment where it doesn't matter. Like, the alignment system isn't going to be fixed, and I don't think it can be fixed at this point. It's honestly, like, as, like, a cultural way of defining things, it's kind of pretty ingrained in there, like, modern day, and there's no untangling and reaching out for everyone objectively anymore. And yeah, no, but it's like, 4th edition actually did something that was one of the changes that people hated, was 4th edition D&D actually just went away with the alignment system as we know it. Instead, they simplified it from 9 to 5. 5 very clearly defined. Like, they took a lot of like the weird middle ground ones, like lawful neutral. Like, lawful neutral had this idea of like, oh, they're the judge. They are this like neutral middle ground, but neutrality as a judge and neutrality in the good-evil alignment spectrum are different things. And like, neutrality is impartialness to different things like that, but it's like a lawful neutral character, okay, they care about laws, they care about order, but that neutrality is they don't care specifically one way or the other about, they have no philosophy for which to judge people by. Like, they have no base morality. I'm not saying they don't have any base morality, but it's very situational and spotty, where it's like, okay, so what does it mean to be lawful neutral? Like, do you just believe, like, because like chaotic and lawful can be seen as like good evil acts as like primarily what defines your character and their morality, and evil, like lawful chaotic, is how they carry out. That's how they're like their action plan. But if you're neutral, like, what are you enacting? Like, a good person who's like lawful is like, yes, I wish to use society to further the good of like all people and support happiness and things like that, and puppies for everyone. And I believe society is the way to do that. Whereas an a lawful evil character is like, yes, I will use society to further my own personal gain schemes and stuff. Order is important to extort people for their money and whatnot and stuff like that. But it's like lawful neutral is like, I will use law and society to do law and society things. And that's just not a strong moral point. Like, not necessarily moral point, but like, it's just not a strong philosophy on its own. So it's like, but the 4th edition did away with a lot of these like kind of like weird fringe ones, and essentially boiled it down to something I think was where pretty much they did away with the law chaos axis, and they kind of made it with, you could be good, unaligned, or evil. And I really like this because honestly, I believe more characters are neutral on the chaotic lawful axis. But then they added 2 more. 2 of like the most well-defined of the remaining 6. Lawful good. Everyone knows what a lawful good character looks like. They're the knight in shining armor. They care about like order, justice, chivalry, I don't know, things like that. Like, it's very clear, like, the archetypal paladin is a lawful good character. Then on the other side, you could also be chaotic evil, who was like the wanton being of destruction. Like, they don't care about anyone but themselves. They're selfish. They like to like just cause chaos and pandemonium. And that's very clear. Like, you have a grasp on what a chaotic evil character is. And with that, that produced like all 5 alignments, and it actually works really well. Honestly, when I was playing 4th edition, I didn't like it as much, but I've really come around to it over the last like few years. And it just like, it helps streamline the alignment system as is, and it's one of those things I wish they hadn't gone back on for 5th edition, because they simplified a lot of things that didn't need to be simplified, and then just kept the things that were extremely problematic in the story-based edition, which they were trying to make. They didn't bother keeping the actually quite successful, not successful popularity-wise, but successful usability-wise alignment system. I'm gonna stop harping on 5th edition now because I do that too much. But yeah, so where was I? But it's like, you know, I guess between the neutral thing and like the just people have just so many different ideas of like what each alignment is, and there's really no good authority to tell you what they are, beyond pretty vague descriptions and like explorations of philosophy in the books themselves. But it's like take that in contrast to like the color pie, which I believe is a far better alignment system, and I've talked about that before. But it's like, those have very grounded ideas of what they are. Like, people have confusion sometimes about which one each one is, but there isn't much variance in what people believe, know what like each color is about philosophically. And honestly, I've talked about this. I think I did a video on it talking about how I've started moving my campaigns to just using the color pie system rather than that. That was a while ago that I made that video. I don't think it was that good either. So I might do a new video on that and like actually specifically talking about like, would people be interested in talking about how I change 5th edition to work with the color pie rather than the alignment system and the specific abilities and things that you swap out to make work? People be interested in that video or a document that I write up. But yeah. Oh. Well, this has just been another one of my D&D rambles. I rambled, sure did. That was a lot messier than I had in my head, but that's how it usually turns out in these sort of things. Well, if you have any thoughts on the matter, let me know. If you want to yell at me for being a brainwashed sheep who believes in climate change, yeah, you can get the hell out of here. And just crawl to hell. Yeah, alright. Well, I will talk to you all later, and I hope you have a wonderful night's sleep. And may your stories smile upon you.